Hey, good morning. Timothy Darrell Young, BSMPA, 15 years, a targeted individual. Pretty painful. Um, Grew up in Utah the first 6 months of my life. I was born in Bountiful. I wouldn't say exactly growing up there, but I was born there. And soon after that, spent some time in Saudi Arabia with my family and got instructions in a reoccurring dream. I don't know if they even had brain-computer interface in the 80s. They may have. But that which would have, I mean, it was induced. I had a Kundalini experience, but I was under synthetic mind control. False, but it's really Satanism. So presumably, if there's anything spiritual in this world, I guess Kundalini something would be indicative of that my body has some like actual spiritual something. But all of this synthetic telepathy stuff is false, Satanism, torture, and you're going to want to evacuate Earth. And this group of gang stalkers, I think they call themselves Two-Face. Among other Satanism, I saw like two EMF perpetrators impersonating nurses at the OHSU hospital around the corner on 6th Street last night in the emergency room. And what happens is that they'll like replace people, do horrible things in front of them as EMF perps, and then the real people take the hit for the behavior. But they were two goat hoof hookers, just jowls for days, just gluttonous whores for the Antichrist system, EMF perpetrators, laying in their own feces, urine, and cum in other locations if they raped somebody that day or fucked each other in the EMF bandwidth. Anyways, they're prancing around the emergency room down the hallway like there's an EMF faked cop, maybe an EMF faked prisoner. And these two goat hoof hookers that are in my synthetic telepathy. So they have my RNM. And like I'm sitting there having thoughts and they're, devilishly trying to satanic mimic me or otherwise say what's going to come out of my mouth. Anyways, so other targeted individuals. I have electromagnetic form perpetrators with my RNM working on behalf of the beast system. It's deception incarnate. I mean, they're unclean. They're not spiritual, but the unclean connotation is that they're catatonic on remote neural monitoring machines and other locations, much like Kevin Christian describes of Howard Circle, laying in their own waste. And if they rape somebody that day, their own cum too. So you take the cum and the feces and the urine together, mix that all up, and they're laying in that. And that's also what we mean by unclean. And it's not spiritual, it's synthetic telepathy. But presumably, like whatever, squeezed out my spine during a Kundalini thing may have been some of the spiritual, which I don't even really believe in. They gave me the front-loaded instructions about the black Swiss cheese holes corroborated by Wes Penray and others. So they're holes in the concocted reality. And I guess if, a solar body passes by, even beams of light pass through these holes allegedly from other parts of the universe. So my plan is to live a long life, maybe 30, 40 years, survive this continuing veiled Zugstreak, satanic misdirection, nano thieving, satanic topping, satanic mimicry, satanic disrespect, and go on. So, so I'm being electromagnetic form perpetrated in Hillsboro. These people should be found where they're very much sociopath, most of them, some real psychopaths, narcissists, where their bodies are laying in their own feces. They should be rounded up and killed for working on behalf of the beast system. And so they're in this weird position, this group of gang stalkers that's broadcasting into my home here and feeling like that there's absolutely no repercussions for working on behalf of the beast system. So where was I? This may be a long video. I'm going to sort of live it for a while, do some counter surveillance, chitter chat with you for a while. This coffee tastes like a failed Zugstreak. Failed Zugstreak. So I think they call themselves Two Faces, maybe. It's all Satanism. Nobody should be getting in your mind and bodies like this. This is not enlightenment. Just because the hookers for goats down the street know my thoughts and I'm extremely intelligent, doesn't mean they're enlightened. Shit, I'm not enlightened. But presumably, like what was involved in my Kundalini is a spiritual thing here as a body, not the synthetic telepathy, RNM, V2K. May also been involved in a really important reoccurring dream of how I got in here through those black Swiss cheese holes. Like most, if not all of you, you just forgot. It's the result of a 2,400-year Buddhist prayer for me and others that seek non-reincarnation. The black Swiss cheese hole portals, exits. Out of incarnating here, I plan to go out there and then be discarnate, maybe hang out in the Orion constellation or nebula, and then really start talking shit about you and your beast system here on the slave planet. We'll probably have a lot more better things to do, but yeah, I'm always going to be talking shit about the Satanists here. And they think they're hiding. Laying in their own waste. Walking around as anybody that they can program by appearance. Go on a date with them or something. You get suckered like a young person or an old person. You know, this person's really beautiful. They show up and they're a sociopathic real devil laying in their own filth, unclean. Okay, so the black Swiss cheese holes. Okay, so how did this information come about for me? So I left Utah. I was born there. Got into the Middle East where I lived with my brother Brad and my mom and my dad. My dad worked for Northrop. It's now Northrop Grumman. He was the comptroller or financial ruler of the F-5, an airplane on a Peacock division with the Saudi Kingdom. So I'm there, you know, a white boy in the sands, picking up scorpions when I'm a kid, bringing them home to my mom, stomping on massive ant hills and having my dad having to throw me into a tub to wash me off because I got ants in my ears. You know, I'm doing the kid thing. European compound. Get to ride a big wheel every once in a while. At least I remember that. And it's like early 80s. And I kept having a reoccurring dream that I remembered my entire life. I don't have many dreams that I remember at all. But it was being programmed into me, maybe with the same like spiritual systems that would be involved in a Kundalini experience that I had while under synthetic telepathy in 2013. So how the dream goes, how I got in through the black Swiss cheese holes. I'm going down a dark tunnel. I'm not conscious of my body. Seems like an eternity. I'm a discarnate entity. I come out into a pristine white room. 2 white Roman or Greek columns on the side, a small stage, a couple of steps, no throne. And I'm there for a while, and then I leave there, and I'm still discarnate, and I see creamy, puffy clouds in the sky. Maybe like it had a little bit of pollution in them. in these warm, heavenly, inviting clouds, and then they shrink down and they become pointy and jagged and sharp, like a sea urchin, or what so many years later in a movie stolen from a black woman who was under R&M, likely, the Matrix movies, when they get to the mainframe computer outside of the simulated reality, like the pointy spikes coming out, circular structure, same fucking structure, morons. And so later, and my mind's been altered and memory fucked with and all kinds of shit like that. I deconstruct the dream and have insight and corroborate that all. And my memory escapes me of some of the work I've done about the black Swiss cheese holes over the last like year and a half. But as an adult, enduring 15 years of synthetic telepathy, torture hells, failed Zugstreaks, satanic disrespect, satanic topping, satanic mimicry, satanic misdirection, attempts on my life and stuff like that. Through all of that shit, I remember in the dream and the connotations that didn't make sense to me when I was a kid about getting back out those black Swiss cheese holes that I came in to get in here, which most of you probably did at some point. You just got memory wiped. So some years ago, I corroborated it and then sought out Wes Penray's disclosures and a man who did a video corroborating the same info. A woman that maybe worked with the Pleiades talked about, if we would have said something about this 2,000 years ago, the Vril would have killed us on sight. Anyways, my mind escapes me right now. All of the work that I've done in the last couple of years, gelling that fail-safe program for getting people out of the B system enslaving the planet individually, TI, and then the foot soldiers for the Antichrist system, the gang stalkers, electromagnetic form perpetrators, BCI Satanists, voice to skull, synthetic telepathy thieves, things like that. Anyways, this all gels for me as an adult, and corroborated by Wes Penray's disclosures and others about the black portal exits on how you get out of incarnating here. I cited a video that a man did. He recently redid it because Facebook tried to censor it, probably through other Satanists. Like this group, I think they call themselves Two Faces. Like, they're specifically here, these EMF perpetrators, the goat hoof hookers, jolly, gluttonous, dirty cunts, sleeping in their own waste down at the hospital, specifically said, and they're hearing my R&M, if they're awake right now, we're here to cover up their black portal exits, meaning 70 billion of you knowing about how to getting out of incarnating here. I underestimated the value of that information, and I underestimated the censorship. So I cited a video. It like doubled the hit counts of it in like a few days. Recently, it got censored. The man redid the video, and I'm definitely not the only person that knows about these black portal exits out of incarnating here. You become discarnate again, regain a lot of your faculties that you're kept infantile, not having here, and then you can kind of go do what you want. I'm checking out the Orion constellation. Oh, and so in this group of gang stalkers, I think they call themselves Two Faces. They both are convinced there's no life after death. There's other Christians definitely over the last 2019 years that speculate on this mindset of like sociopaths, because they are psychopaths, some of them narcissists. Like, it helps reinforce making their behavior okay, like torturing somebody to suicide or trying to censor some of the more valuable information in the solar system. And that's one of the components of what they're doing here, along with like nano thieving with virtual drives and trying to get advantage, in some ways, like by having access to my R&M and then pretending like it's their work. So they can do things like demand worship, which I don't totally understand, but it may involve mind control and making you all slaves. Hi, I used to be Christian. I like the prophecy stuff the most. Hey, greetings, Leo. Nice to talk to you. With these synthetic telepathy, torture, false spirituality, but it's really Satanism, targeted individual status versus gang stalkers. Like, I mean not to be offensive at all, but as Wes termed it, like the alien invader force that maybe showed up here 50,000 years ago, that's enslaving us individually, but the whole planet, everybody's a TI or a torture robot for Satanism, like me. This technology that does voice to skull, brain computer interface, remote neural monitoring is specifically designed to take advantage of Christians. Like if you wanted to believe, and then all of a sudden you and your mom are looking at a talking refrigerator, like it's really dangerous for Christians and synthetic telepathy, targeted individual status, and gang stalking, because like these gang stalkers at the same time, they don't think there's an afterlife or any repercussions for what they do. They're also trying to convince, like, based on my mortal presence in the world, that they're like the God of the Jew or the God of the Christian. Like these people perpetrating and broadcasting into my consciousness and room, not unlike Kevin Christian, that are in other locations sleeping in their own filth, like through synthetic telepathy manipulations of like local TV, Satanic Project Mockingbird, all this stuff. They're trying to have their cake and eat it too, convinced that there's no life after death, but somehow they've won a corporeal planet. Whoever wants to be corporeal again, with variables that are impossible to ever recreate, and supposedly was like a reward that I have. Like there's no other planet. Ask them, well, why don't you show me directions? I want to be non-corporeal, probably in the Orion Nebula, where I will unfold my talking shit about all of the Satanists, Vril, mind controller, gutter trash punks here on Earth. But they're trying to so Leo, the tech is specifically designed to mislead, torture, and take advantage of Christians. So be careful. I hope you're not a TI, but thanks for saying something. Yeah, that's why I thought it was targeted a lot before then. Yeah, they specifically target, like I'm Christian genome, concepts applied. I've been doing Christian stuff my whole life. I just didn't call myself Christian, more Buddhist, but yeah, they're after the good. And then rewarding EMF perpetrators, real devils, humans in other locations. So this gang, who may have stole me from another gang in 2013, they're convinced these perpetrators sleeping in their own filth, sending gutter trash hookers for Satan to the local hospital, wheeling around an EMF perpetrator, faking a cop's form, working gleefully on the behalf of the beast system, enslaving us. You'd rather have a lobotomy than endure like my last 5 years, let alone 15. They call that being annoyed. In few words to mislead. They both, these gang stalkers, all this false psyop shit, but it's really Satanism. They both have themselves convinced in pathological liar, sociopath, psychopath, narcissistic tendencies that there's no life after death, and their EMF perpetrator gang has earned a world that doesn't exist, and they don't have directions to. And who wants to be incarnate again? Like, so they're in a weird pickle, a weird situation. So, convinced there's no life after death, and participating in some of the worst crime in the cosmos. Okay, so Black Swiss cheese holes, I corroborate it with Wes. We like double the hit counts on the YouTube video in like a day. Another woman who worked with the Pleiades talked about, a couple thousand years ago, if we talked about this, Darrell would try to kill us on sight. And other sources that may not come to mind in instant recall. But I'm not the first person to ever talk about or, warn against the false white light of infinite reincarnation with memory wipes and a life review at the moon. And then the alternative to that is the black Swiss cheese holes and getting a chance to grow back up and not be kept infantile until your 80s. So that's going on. What else? I think I did a video of some of my purchases of equipment on a shoestring budget, trying to disrupt this broadcast or otherwise protect my consciousness. Kevin Christian has an extension on his YouTube and some kind of legal matter. So it may not get shut down. It may. Catherine Horton, Dr. Horton, working from stop007.org. Her Twitter got shut down, but it may get turned back on. And the U of O just hired their front man for the New World Order. Some shit-eating grinner that was on the Musk payroll, taking a paycheck for satanic evil work that's already been done. Like, he has the goat balls to take a job at the University of Oregon working on brain-computer interface and taking a paycheck for that. And it's some of the worst Satanism in the cosmos. My alma mater. That was probably also coordinated with consciousness of what's happening to me and other sort of satanic disrespect manifestations of how this is all going to unfold. So they never had God, but they really did invent Satan. The V system. And this may or may not be a second copy of Earth, where all these patsy systems, deceptions, like they think the top of their, who they praise and whatnot is Satan and the beat system and the surveillance and everything they've made. And then potentially that's all in one contained whole and in between, and then possibly other simulated realities. And if that's the case, and I'm not totally sure one way or another, it may absolutely enable real Christian hell. We're at and after moments of death, where these perpetrators think there's nothing after death, and they're trying to convince like their gang and then maybe other people misled that somehow they've also earned a world that doesn't exist. But potentially, and I haven't thought out all of the details recently, but the second copy, and then you give somebody enough rope to hang themselves, and then they think they're only answering to Satan, and it's like, and then you could pull them out into ultimate reality, exact punishment on them, and reward those that would need rewarding. So I don't know totally about that, but the Black Swiss cheese holes information is corroborated. This gang of stalkers, these Satanists, are trying to censor it, and the information's been recovered. I try to make reference to it like every time, or a lot of times when I post. Some other people, like people that maybe watch the Gaia channel and stuff, would know about the black hole portals that have depth in space-time around the criminal compound. That is your way towards salvation and non-reincarnation and better existences. Everything else is pretty much false. I'm going to go ahead and end this at 25 minutes. Good morning, Oregon. Good morning, the real citizens of Hillsboro. Don't believe the community slander. These people trying to cover up evidence about the black Swiss cheese hole exits are some of the worst criminals in the cosmos. They may say few words and seem innocent, pretty manipulative types, sociopaths, psychopaths, narcissists. And they're more concerned with their meth budget or appearing cute while they're laying in their own feces than your afterlife and getting out of incarnation and not getting tricked in these spiritual slavery systems. So I'm going to try and avoid the satanic misdirects. So they may have just been replacing the real women that worked there so that they would do these horrible things in their image. And then disappear back to their sleeping feces pile as an EMF gang stalker, and then the real women take the heat for the behavior. So I try not to react. Sometimes it's hard. The Buddhist advice of not being moved by praise or blame is really good for targeted individuals. So this coffee tastes like, in the spirit of Revolt of the Apes on Twitter, this coffee tastes like answering of a prayer that all sentient beings be free from suffering, and nuts and bolts. That's those black Swiss cheese holes. And then on from there. Oh, hey, Leo. I was getting hit every time I went outside by some sort of beam, but now it stopped. Yeah, Leo, I got some advice from another TI, and I'm experimenting with it. I bought a Tesla coil. And I may be able to put up this link after. I'll put up the link to the website after I end the stream. But it's a device that looks like you'd put it in a computer. And I think it's a Tesla coil. And then you buy, it's like $12. And then you need a 30-volt power supply. So I bought one of those. So maybe, under $100 to make a 30-volt Tesla coil in your home. And how it works is like, if you put your hand through this machine when it's operating, it won't hurt you. But if you put like metal or wood, it'll induce heat into it and start it on fire. But what I learned it from this website that I'll post up at the end, Leo, and then another TI in like Germany that made the same device in his apartment. But you get this thing running and it creates an electromagnetic light in that spectrum around you so that perpetrators can't see you and like lock onto you to torture you. He was doing it in his apartment in Germany, and I was fortunate to ask some TI groups, you got any good advice on shielding? And he gave me the website with the device. And then, from there on, I knew to pick up the 30-volt power supply, and that's showing up in the mail soon. So I'm going to try that to help with dynamic or changing targeted individual shielding, create a blue or white light around my home so that I'm harder to see from the broadcasts that are torturing me and practicing Satanism. So you may check that out, Leo. And then recently I've been really poor tactics against TI to keep us controllable. I purchased maybe a $33 0.5 millimeter lead cap, medical cap, and can maybe over the course of months, if I find it effective, even buy lead clothes, stuff for my neck, even something to put over the eyes to try and help disrupt the broadcasting in and out of me and the torture. So in terms of getting hit every time I went outside by some sort of beam, now it's stopped. That's some advice, Leo, for your home protection that I picked up from another targeted individual. Lead clothing. I came to that conclusion, and other TIs have too. And then a Tesla coil with a 30-volt remote power source are some of the tactics that I'm applying for or using for targeted individual shielding. Different programs. I was just talking to Leo. I was just talking to this woman in Canada on Facebook who's a TI, and like as I'm talking to her, possibly electromagnetic form perpetrators started like perping her house outside, not dissimilar to the stuff that's going on to me like 800 miles south in Oregon. The women that were at an emergency room that predictably they knew I was going to end up in, we're part of the same B system, Leo. So I will put this link up and cut this video here. Thanks so much for asking questions, sir. Feel free to write me anytime. If you use Tim, D as in Darrell, Young, BS as in Bachelor's in Science, MPA, Master's in Public Administration 5, or Tim D. Young, BS MPA 5. You can find me on a lot of platforms like Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, stuff like that. So yeah, I'm glad I could help, man. As like reverted, inverted, upside down and shit like this, some of Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate that, Leo. Some like as fucked up as this all is, like really, some of the best, like most Christian concepts applied, like help other people, like good, like people are TI and specifically being tortured. So you're probably a really good person. Oh, and just to sum up on the black Swiss cheese holes, presumably the biological spiritual of me and the recurring dream from the 80s on the exit plans through the black Swiss cheese hole portals, presumably that was spiritual and connected with like my Kundalini experience in 2013. Like my biology may have spiritual components in addition to the synthetic telepathy. So there's some reason to be hopeful. Have a good day, Leo.